In this video, we will focus on simple and powerful shortcuts that can save you hours of time. Whether you're analyzing data or building a report, these can help you work faster and smarter. Let's get into it. So the first shortcut for today is Ctrl-A. This allows you to select all cells within your cell range and then modify them as you wish. For example, I might want to add one background color to all of them, like this. Then Ctrl-Z to undo your last action, or Ctrl-Y to redo it. If you would like to select a full column within your dataset, you can highlight any cell within this column and then press Ctrl-Space. On top of that, you can always, of course, click at the column name like this. If you would like instead to select a full row, instead of pressing Ctrl-Space, you would press Shift-Space, like this. Now let's assume that we would like to format all cells in column I, the profit. We could press, as we said, Ctrl-Space to select the full column, and then Ctrl-1, which opens the format window. And here you can go to number and select one decimal place. Now, when we are working with a dataset, we might want to filter a column based on certain values. Now, in order to add filters on the column names, you can just press Ctrl, Shift, and L. And here, for example, I can go into the region column and select to only see rows that correspond to the central region. If you would like to add one more row of data, you can highlight a certain row, as we said, by pressing Shift and Space, and then pressing Ctrl and plus. And that inserts one row above the one that you selected. Similarly, you can do that with the columns. So select a column by pressing Ctrl Space and then pressing again Ctrl plus, and you can do it again and again. In order to take this row away, you can just press Ctrl and minus. Now, I personally prefer converting any dataset into what's called an Excel table before working with it. That makes it cleaner and easier to maintain. And in order to do that, I can highlight any cell and then press Ctrl-T, then press OK, and you see already the different color formatting that indicates that something has changed. You can see the extra tab here on the top, table design, and that really tells us that this is now an Excel table. I can also change the table style to make it a bit nicer like this. When you have a big dataset, you might want to navigate quickly from top to bottom and left to right. And instead of pressing continuously the arrow keys, you can just press Ctrl down and then, for example, the down arrow key, which brings you to the very bottom of this column. Then you can press Ctrl down and the right arrow key, which brings you to the very right end of this row. Then Ctrl and up arrow key, going to the top, and then Ctrl and left arrow key, going to the very left of this row. So you can quickly go all around your dataset. But what if you would like to select your cells within the range that you navigate? What you can do is, instead of just pressing Ctrl down and then the arrow keys, you can press Ctrl and Shift down. Now I keep pressing Ctrl and Shift down, and I will press the right arrow key. So this is going to select all cells to the right side of the range that I had selected before. So in this case, that is basically a full table. And I can press now Ctrl and the top arrow and go back again to the top of the table. Now let's assume that your table has duplicate rows and you would like to get rid of them before analyzing it further. What you can do is press the Alt key down and then the A letter and then the M letter. And you get this pop-up that basically tells you that it will delete duplicate values across all columns of your dataset. You can press OK, and then as you see, 3 duplicate values were found and removed. But this is where something interesting happened. When I pressed the Alt key down, I got shortcuts for all the different options of the ribbon in the top. And what Alt does for you here is that it saves you from using the mouse, basically. So you can select any of these options without having to click to it. Let's explore it a bit further. Let's say that I would like to create a pivot table based on this dataset. I can highlight any cell in this table and then press Alt, then go to Insert, so I will press N as it says here, and then I'm going to select pivot table, so the letter V, then T, and then OK. And here you have it, a new worksheet with a pivot table that I can use as normally, that I created just by using keyboard shortcuts instead of clicking with the mouse. Another example of using the Alt key to replace mouse clicks is, for example, adding a border outside our table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my full range, Ctrl A, then press Alt, then press A to navigate to the Home tab, then B to navigate to the Borders selection, and then S for the outside borders. One more way to navigate, especially if you have a big dataset with many columns and rows, is by pressing Ctrl and the Home key, which brings you to the cell A1, so the top left cell of your cell range or table. Now let's say that I have this small dataset that gives me the sum of sales for each one of the ship modes. Now I would like to create a graph out of it. Now the traditional way of doing it is selecting the data, going to Insert, and then picking your favorite table, for example, a bar chart. But alternatively, you can just select any of the cells in this range, and then you can press Fn in Windows and F11. And this creates a dedicated worksheet with your graph, in this case a bar chart, that you can customize as you would like to, like this, and even change the chart type. So if I go here, I can make it a pie. Another shortcut that I'm very excited about is the flash fill. So imagine that you have a column with the mails of your contacts or your sales prospects, and you would like to come up with their names so that you use that in future communication, for example. What you can do is start by typing what it would look like for the first one of the contacts here. So we have mail darrenpowers@awesomecompany.com, and we can say that the customer name is Darren Powers. So what is before the dot here is the first name, and what is after the dot here is the last name. And Excel is quite smart to understand that there is a pattern here going on. So what you can do is highlight any cell here and press Ctrl E. And boom, Excel has quickly identified the pattern and created the customer names as a new column here in your dataset. And this could work also the other way around. Imagine that you have customer names and you would like to create the email addresses of those customers based on a similar pattern. What if you happen to not like the exact order of columns that your dataset has? Well, you can move those around to your liking by selecting a full column, as we said, Control Space, then pressing down the Shift key, and then moving the column, for example, here. One more handy shortcut is using AutoSum. Now here we have a bunch of orders and their respective sales, and we would like to quickly sum over the sales that these orders generated. Now, of course, I can start typing my own formula, for example, equals sum, then open brackets, then highlight the whole range, and then close brackets, and that's it. But that's a lot of steps. What I can do instead is selecting the values from the sales column, and then pressing Alt and equals. And that's basically the shortcut to the AutoSum. One more thing that I have found very useful is being able to paste things as values. For example, here, I might want to calculate the profit margin, so the ratio of the profit divided by sales for each one of the orders. And I can, well, create a new column, call it profit margin, and then make it equal profit divided by sales. So here I have a profit margin calculation, and you can see that there is a formula, of course, behind each one of those cells. What if I would like to copy paste that somewhere else without a reference to the formula that is underneath, just the values? What I can do is select, well, the columns that I'm after, do Ctrl C to copy those, go in a new sheet, and then press Ctrl Shift and V. And as you see, I have copied those columns over here, but most importantly, the profit margin cells are just plain values. They don't have a reference to the function that was there before. Finally, let's say that you would like to organize a long text that is in a cell by splitting it in more than one rows within the same cell. What you can do is use the Alt key again. For example, here we have the orders, sales, profit margins, and an order description that can get a bit lengthy. For example, what I can do is go here, and I would like to split that after the full stop in two different rows. I can press Alt and then Enter, and here it is. If you expand now your cell, you will see that this is split in two separate lines within the same cell. Same goes for here, for example. So let's say that I would like to split that after including, and you have the same effect. And that's a wrap. If you found this useful, like, subscribe, and comment below which shortcuts you find most useful in your daily job. See you in the next video.